Hi, this is Rich from Marvelous Ministries, sharing transparently about my marriage to my wife who had breast cancer in 1996, 4 years before we got married, and the struggles that we're going through as we are being tested by God, almost to the point like Job, but not quite, and our commitment and the hope to overcome this through the love of God and our love for God and for each other. And I hope what I share here transparently will encourage somebody else to love their spouse for more than just what Ephesians 5 says, but to love their spouse like Jesus loves us, the church. So I left off on how I became separated a second time. But let's go back further. Back to some of the crazy things that happen in divorces and step families and so forth. You still have to deal with an ex-spouse. And there are horrifying things that I knew about what happened in their marriage. Things shared by people who directly knew, and also from my spouse. I love my wife. That's why we got married. I very quickly came to love our daughter, who was somebody else's daughter by birth, but mine by adoption through this marriage. Not legal adoption, but adoption, and that God brought me to replace somebody who left. And then I came to love our son, my stepson officially, and my stepdaughter. And some of the sacrifices I've made and sacrifices my wife made. You see, my wife kept the house that her first husband and her bought together in their first marriage. And here I am, engaged, looking to get married to my wife, my first wife, and most likely my only wife. Yet they live in a house that they call home, that they want me to be a part of, and it's a house that I didn't want to live in. My flesh didn't want to live in because of who she bought it with, and there'd be memories of her and him in that home. But I turned and looked at these two young children who didn't ask for any of this. They didn't ask for what happened in the first marriage. They were witness to things. They didn't ask for their mother to get cancer. They didn't ask for their father to abandon their mother and them in some ways. They didn't ask for them to get divorced. They didn't ask for their mother to marry some new guy who's going to be a stepdad, going to take away time from them with their mother. All those kinds of things. And, ouch, I just got bit, sorry. And I thought about it. I looked at these kids, these children that God gave me partial responsibility for. And I couldn't do it. I couldn't put my selfish, fleshly thoughts before the needs of these young children. And so we stayed in the home that they knew as home. And they welcomed me in. And very quickly I said, I came to love Taylor. This precious little gift from heaven, meant to brighten my wife's life in a period of time that was very dark, very painful, with a personality that is just infectious. One example of what happened in our marriage very, very early on is Jason, our oldest, was playing Little League Baseball. And Taylor's dad was there, being the involved dad. He was hovering over her as she was playing on the playground equipment. He's a local pediatrician. I won't go into that too much, but what he's doing and why, I don't want to go into that. I think that brings out some of my flesh. But I learned something, and I want to express it in this video because it's important. Because a mother knows the sound of her children because of love. There's a bond there that started with the first 9 months, and then a close bond if you're breastfeeding and caring for your baby You're investing so much time in this precious little gift. Well, even a stepfather can know, can know the sounds of their children. I heard a sound. I was some distance away, but close enough to kind of keep an eye on her, even though her dad's right there. And I'd look over every once in a while and just kind of keep an eye on Taylor. And I was looking away, watching Jason's game, and I heard a sound, and I knew in an instant Taylor was upset, and she was not happy. And she made it very well known. So I turned to look as this precious little girl had fallen off the playground equipment and twisted her ankle. And her father, her biological father, tried to comfort her, and she didn't want any of it. And she turned and started hopping towards me from about 20 to 30 feet away. And I was like, oh boy, this is not good. It's good that she feels safe and loved by me. But as a parent, being rejected by your precious little daughter is not a good sign for you as a parent. And so she came close to me, and I dropped down on my knees, and she just melted into my chest, wrapped my arms around her. I'll never forget that. So my wife had to get back to the story. She was in treatment for cancer. Her cancer was estrogen positive, but she chose to risk and sacrifice for us to attempt having children together. A tremendous risk. Her oncologist didn't recommend it, but said, your screens are clear. And so my wife quit getting her injections to suppress her estrogen. And then after some time, we tried to have children. And she took Clomid, which is a fertility drug. And I was like, okay, Lord, no more than 2. No litters, not 6, please. No more than 2. And nothing happened. An ultrasound said that her lining didn't build in her uterus, and so they doubled the Clomid the next month. And I was really on my knees praying hard. No more than 2. And we got pregnant. And so my wife was intellectually experienced and knowledgeable on pregnancies and assured me that this is her 3rd pregnancy, and don't worry, it's not going to be a 12-hour marathon. Okay. It was all brand new to me. She ended up having an 18-hour pregnancy delivery. Not an 18-hour pregnancy, but an 18-hour delivery, birth. She had an epidural, and the first IV ran out, and the nurses were asking if she wanted a second one. And I might get in trouble for sharing this kind of information, but I will tell you that if a woman is in childbirth and she is having an epidural and the bag's running out, please never say, no, it's okay, I can feel better for pushing, we're almost done, because that wasn't the case. And I will give advice to a male nurse. You never tell a pregnant woman in delivery who is not on an epidural anymore because the epidural's run out, you don't tell her to quit using her energy for screaming or yelling, but use it for pushing. I stepped away from the table when he said that. I thought she might suggest he stand a little closer so she could grab him somewhere and let him experience the kind of pain without an epidural. And so my rather petite wife gave birth to our daughter. And when she went to the pediatrician for the visit, the pediatrician said, next time you come in, bring your husband. I'd like to measure his head because your daughter is 3 sizes off the charts. And I'll probably be in trouble for saying that too. But yeah, when my daughter was born, I didn't, being the inexperienced first-time father I was, didn't have the nurses get my daughter in my wife's arms as soon as she would like. And that will play into our story later when I talk about our second and final child born. But after my daughter was born in 2002, we had 2 pregnancies that we lost. And we mourned each one one of which we lost on my birthday as we were about to leave for a weekend getaway, my wife and I, and that canceled our trip. And so between 2002 and 2005, February 12th, when my son was finally born, we finally got to the point where I said to my wife, I can't risk losing you just to have another child. I didn't marry you just to have children. I married you to share my life with. And so I said, on the month we got pregnant with my son, I said, honey, this is our last month trying. And those were my reasons why. And fortunately, we were blessed to have another pregnancy and a full-term delivery. And out came my son, but this time I didn't have the opportunity to get him into her arms quicker. They were like, cut the cord quick. And I'm like, whoop, quick, okay, snip. And they whisked him away and started working on him. And then they said, crash cart stat. And he wasn't crying. They gave a announcement, it's been 5 minutes. He still wasn't crying. And they said 9 minutes, he's pink. And I'm like, okay, pink's good, he's not blue. But almost immediately when I was videotaping and recording, I put the camera down, put the lens cap on. Didn't realize I didn't turn the camera off, but I grabbed my wife's hand. Her view was blocked by all the computers and monitors that were in the way of them working on our son, who was either coming home with us or we were not going to have another child. And we prayed nonstop until they whisked him out of the room to ICU. And the first time she saw him, unfortunately, was in ICU with all the probes and sensors and everything connected to him. Amazingly, we took him home the following day. And I would gladly say that everybody's alive and okay. Possible effects of his birth on him, physically or emotionally. But the placenta had partially detached and all the amnia was full of blood, and they were struggling to get the blood out of his lungs, and that was some of the challenges they had. So that's some of our challenges. Is, my wife on her charts was written down as AMA, and she kept asking, what is AMA? And they're like, advanced maternal age. Oh, great, so you're calling me old. Well, we were old. I mean, me, 2012, okay, I was 36. Oh, I was going to be 36 that year. So my wife was 38. Not super old, but getting there. Well, here we are. It's 2022. My wife was diagnosed with breast cancer in 1996. In 2010, she was diagnosed with stage 4. She had all these tumors. They did radiation, and she's partially paralyzed now and in a wheelchair. She can transfer, but she can't walk, can't drive. And on top of that, me being rear-ended, and now us being separated for more than 2 years now. Trying to save our marriage, but not getting the progress that we're hoping for and praying for. So, in my next video, I'm going to talk about a phrase my wife came up with, which she calls new normal. See, normal is what everybody gets in life. The normal things, the things that you usually think you have. Like everybody thinks they can get married and then just automatically have kids. And some people find out that they have problems having kids and are even never able to have kids of their own. That was one of the challenges when we first got married, is my wife didn't know. And that's my phrase. I said, well, nobody knows. They always assume. So I will talk about new normal. Thank you for watching. This is Rich from Marvelous Ministries.